Hello, students. We want to talk about a very important chapter, and that is financial planning for retirement. And these are some issues that we are going to look at. And also, I will post this PowerPoint on the discussion board for the students to copy questions and copy information from here, from these PowerPoints, and ask ChatGPT questions and post their questions on the discussion board for other students to comment. And I am going to give assign a good point for this assignment, which is 300 points, to tell you the importance of understanding retirement accounts and why it is a major component of personal finance. The first thing about the retirement is that what are your retirement goals, and what these goals, for example, would be: are you planning to retire early? And if you want to retire, how much money do you want to have? And where do you want to retire? Therefore, a lot of questions come into place. Who do you want your money to go to when you retire? And how do you want to spend your money? Do you want to travel? Do you want to retire at age 55 or 60 or 70? And many people will see that, they end up working way beyond the retirement age because they didn't plan properly when they could. Therefore, this is such an important chapter, and I am going to assign, as I told you, 300 points. This time, last time I put 300 points, I assigned it originally 100. The computer didn't accept, but this time I'm going to assign it 300 points right in the computer to make sure we can get the point, you can get the point that you deserve. The other assignments that you got 200 extra points, I will add it at the, when I am combining the grades. Therefore, in order to maximize your Social Security, must retire at his or her 66th birthday, and that is to get the full retirement. Let's not forget, in the US, you can retire at age 62. That's called early retirement. Federal government employees retire at 55, can retire at 55. But if you retire at 62 years old, you are, you are not going to get as much as they call it full retirement age. And that full retirement age, if you were born after 1960, your retirement age starts at 67. And we will talk about that. And should provide workers with the retirement benefits, should give you enough money, because the worst thing that can happen to someone, is you retire and suddenly you feel that there is not any money for you. You don't have enough money to pay for the rent, for the insurance. Let's not forget that, some people have Medicaid. That Medicaid still, Medicare still is going to cost the people. But anyhow, we got participation on companies' defined benefit plan, which means, do you work for a company? If you want to discuss about this, post it on the discussion board. Do you have 401k? Have you contributed to that? What is that? Do you know how important that is? And if you want to talk about it, that would be great. Do you know IRA? Anyone has IRA account? And is it tax deductible? What are the benefits? We are going to talk about it. And what is annuity? Anyone wants to put a question on the discussion board regarding annuity? You can ask ChatGPT, post your question regarding annuity. And the first step on retirement goals: how do you like to live? A standard of living. And what kind of level of income you want to have when you are 60, 70, 80? Are you going to relocate, go to South Florida to live there? Sometimes if you are in big cities, the cost of living is high, as the rent, everything. And determine the amount of what you need to retire And many people say, oh, they like to have 1 million. But let's not forget, if you are 20 years now, to have 1 million, let's say 40 years, 30 years, 40 years, 45 years from now, do you know 1 million is not going to be that much 40 years from now? Therefore, these are something that you have to know. Now, many wait until they are 30 or later, which is not a great idea. The sooner you think about the retirement accounts to contribute for your retirement, the better it is. If you are 20, 25, anything, the sooner you decide, the more that money is going to be. Therefore, those people who decide early, when to decide, that they decide to retire early, to contribute early, those people are going to have a very good life. Pathway too little, tendency to spend now. The people, putting away too little. Many of young people, and even middle-aged people have the tendency to spend a lot of money that what they have, and but they put away too little, and that can cause significant problem when they get into their retirement age. Therefore, you want to take a compounding reward, an extremely important concept. If someone wants to use those, you remember we used those calculators, you can go and one of the questions can be, if I contribute every year this much for my retirement, I am supposed 20 years old. If I contribute, I make supposed $25,000 a year. If I contribute 10% of my salary, which is, $2,500 annually for the next 40 years, and I end up getting an interest of 5% annually, how much would I have when I turn to 67? Suddenly, it will tell you the future money that you are going to have. And if you are smart, we talked about, investing in good stocks, solid stocks, instead of 5%, you might end up getting 10%. Now, here, let's see the power of compounding. Here it is. Look at here. It is if you are 10 years, let's say 55 years old, at 4%, this much, and it gives 6%. Suppose this is contribution. Here is just the question we just talked about, contribution of 2,000 at annual average return. Do you see that when you contribute 2,000 after 10 years, if it is 4%, your 10 years, after 10 years, you will have 24,000. However, if it is 10%, it is 31,000. This 10%, think about it as putting in S&P, as something that gives an average of 10%. Now, if you go with an invest $5,000 right here, you end up with 60,000 after 4%, after 6%. And look at here, if you are 25 years old, see the importance of it. You are 25 years old. For 40 years, you are going to say, invest 10% of your salary, for example, 10%, you are going to put $2,000 at 10%. That will be 885 after 40 years. However, if you make 5,000 contribution, it will be $2.2 million. Therefore, that is showing you the power of compounding. And let me tell you, some students are smart. They might find some ways to invest in such a way to get 12%. Suddenly, if you get 12% return on your retirement, investing, for 40 years, for 5,000, you will have $3-4 million by the time, you retire. You can use this as a way of contributing to the retirement. Therefore, think about how much your current living expenses are and how much, your future, rule of 80% time. Let me tell you what it is. Imagine that you are, if for example, imagine that if I am, for example, 60 years old, I am retiring now, for example. If I am retiring now, and imagine if I make $100,000 a year, the rule of thumb says that it is better for me to have, when I retire, to keep the same standard of living, I have to have an income of 80,000, 80% of my 100,000. 80% of my 100,000 is $80,000. That is not a little money, to keep the same standard of living. Because when I make 100,000 at the, age of, let's say 60, when I retire, I want to keep the same standard of living. To keep the same standard, I better have 80% of income when I am not working. Where should this money come from? This money should come either from social security checks that are usually for someone who has an income of 60,000, it will be only, let's say, $20,000 maximum a year. 20,000 maximum a year is way below 80,000 that I need. That means I am short by $60,000 a year to keep my standard of living the same standard that I had before retirement. 60,000 is not a little money a year while I am not working. If I can strategize when I am young, I can easily have that $80,000 a year. If I am not, then I will be in trouble when some people are used to, living with little, salary, which is fine. Those people would be okay because they have lived all their lives with very little money when they retire. That paycheck of, a social security check of $1,000, $2,000 would be more than enough. But those of you who are making $30,000, $40,000, by the time you retire, you are making $100,000. And if you do not have enough in your retirement account or other accounts, the income that should come to you, you will be in deep trouble. Of course, some people go and invest in real estate and they have income from rental real estate. Okay, as long as you can, compensate yourself for that shortage. That's the rule of 80% that they say that, estimate retired income. Estimate how much you need. We worked with those calculators. We want you to understand that now that you are making $2,000 a month or $3,000 a month, and you are saving a little money. Let's not forget that, the money of 40 years from now is way different than the money that you are making now. Therefore, these are something. Social security benefits. You have to know how much social security checks you are going to get, what kind of social security you are getting. These days, average social security is around $800, $1,800. Many of, retired people are under pressure these days because they believe that, $1,800 a month, that's $1,800 a month or $1,830 or $50 is not that much of money. They cannot, because they have to pay rent, they have to pay for Medicare, which goes, in part of Medicare, as you all know, they have to pay $180 a month. You deduct that from the check, you deduct the cell phone that they have to have, you deduct the internet, the car insurance, car payment. Therefore, that is not that much of money. The people who strategize and put money in their retirement, they are going to have some of the best retirements. And then we are going to talk about company retirement benefits and pension plans. We will talk investment, and we will talk about it. This is the first, video. Now I will create more videos. That way we make sure to understand that, we know what is involved in retirement.